Hey, Arcturus here. Today marks the release of Warhammer The Old World. Both starter sets are available, coming with numerous miniatures in each, as well as a rulebook, some dice, and blast tokens, and the red measuring sticks. Rules are available as well, separately, if you already have some of these from back when Warhammer Fantasy was still available. And the rules for each set of factions are also available, coming in with two rule books, one for the forces of Brettonia, the Empire, Wood, High Elves, and Dwarves, and the other for more of the Chaos side of things, including Warriors of Chaos, Beastmen, Orcs and Goblins, and Khemri. Between both rulebooks, you have rules for all the factions that are supported in the main game. There are some other factions that are going to also have some supplemental rules, I believe, but I'm not too sure on that. I think those are more as free PDFs. So I hope that is the case, especially if you have one of those armies already from playing Fantasy in the past. Now, if you're not familiar with Warhammer The Old World, it is the revival of Warhammer Fantasy. Age of Sigmar is more of a successor to it, but this is bringing back that old rank and file style gameplay. If you're familiar with Total War Warhammer or any of the other Total War titles, this gameplay is very similar to that, just on a tabletop with actual miniatures as opposed to on the computer. It looks really fun from what I've seen of battle reports online, and I have lots of plastic to assemble and paint here. So I did pick up both starters as well as the Necrosphinx and both sets of rule books. Now, each starter set also comes with the main rule book, but I also got the arcane journals and the maps. We'll look at those rule books in a moment. But first, let's start by looking at the Brettonia box. If you're unfamiliar with Warhammer Fantasy, Brettonia is very much a stand-in for Arthurian legend. It's very much Arthurian legend with chivalry, knights, peasants, all that sort of thing. Plenty of miniatures in this box. I believe there are 75. Some quick math would say 76. So I was very close. Or I could just read the big 76 printed on the box. But plenty of miniatures in here for the Brettonian faction. Lots of peasants. So you wind up with 36 men-at-arms, 24 peasant bowmen, and then for knights, you have 12 Knights of the Realm and 3 Pegasus Knights, as well as a Lord on a Royal Pegasus. The vast majority of this are old miniatures from when Fantasy was being released regularly. So back from, I believe it ended in 2015, so back from around that time frame or older. They do still, a lot of them still seem to hold up. I think the Knights hold up really well. The Pegasus Knights do, I think, show their age a little bit more. The peasants come in such large blocks that going hyper detailed would probably be more of a detriment than a benefit. And the new model, this Pegasus Lord here, is brand new, remade for this re-release. I really like the Arthurian Knights. Both Brettonia and Khemri, or the Tomb Kings, I should say, were both factions I had always seen in the White Dwarf magazine and really wanted, but could never get. They were just outside of what we could get, what I could afford at the time. But I'm really pleased these are back. I'm really looking forward to painting these. I even actually ordered some books on heraldry to paint up the knights properly. So I definitely look forward to building and painting these. I will do a more in-depth look at what comes in this box, the sprues you get, and the knights, hopefully with finished models, probably a week or two from the release of this video. It depends on how long it takes me to actually assemble those. Next, we're going to look at the Tomb Kings box. So this is a bigger box. It comes with more models. It's essentially Fantasy Egypt with skeletons, mummies. The pharaohs have woken up and come out of their tombs, and they would like you to get off their lawn. So here we can kind of see them lined up in rank and file. Again, most of these are older sculpts, such as, this skeleton warrior here, skeleton horseman, and skeleton chariot. Those are all older sculpts. I believe this Tomb King is new, as it is included with this bone dragon, which also comes with a tomb priest. You can swap them, so you can have the Tomb King on the bone dragon and the priest as a foot character. I think the new one looks great. It is a little large, but it does have that nice alligator head, which I think works really well with the Tomb King aesthetic, as opposed to an actual dragon. I do remember when they revamped Tomb King, seeing that white dwarf and looking at them and going, those look amazing. One model that I really wanted back in the day was the Necrosphinx. So I did pick this up. I'm really looking forward to it. And so I did say it, I forgot to mention, but the Tomb King box comes with 93 miniatures, primarily skeletons, 40 skeleton warriors, 32 skeleton archers, 16 skeleton horsemen, 3 chariots, and the bone dragon and Tomb King. This Necrosphinx can build 2 different kits. It can build the Necrosphinx or the War Sphinx. If you build it as the Necrosphinx, you can build it with a Tomb King on foot. And if you build it as the War Sphinx, you can have it with either a tomb mount as a mount for your Tomb King, or you can have it with 2 spearmen on the back. They may have another weapon option. I'm not entirely sure. But the Necrosphinx is really what I picked this up for, with those giant blades, the wings. It just looks super great. I'm really looking forward to building that. So for rule books, well, the main rules are included in those box sets. There are 2 other main rule books, which include army lists as well as all the stats and stuff. It's very similar to how they do the Middle-earth fantasy battles. Normally in that game, you only need 1 or 2. You need maybe 1 book in the main rule book, unlike 40k or Age of Sigmar, where you need a specific book for each army. So I actually really like the way they've done this. It makes it a little easier. If you're only going to play Brettonia, you only need to buy the 1 rule book, and if you decide you want to branch out into dwarves or high elves or wood elves, you already have all the rules for them. And same for the Forces of Evil. If you're going to play Tomb Kings, well, you only need the 1 book. And if you decide to branch out into Warriors of Chaos or Beastmen or Orcs, you already have that book. Of course, if you're planning on playing both, you would need both books. But it is a little easier than having to buy a codex for each army. It's a little nicer to be able to just buy 1 book, assuming, Forces of Good or Forces of Evil. I also picked up this map. That's all I have to say on that one. And then additionally, for Tomb Kings and for Brettonia, we have the arcane journals. These add a few extra options to your army, and these are more akin to the actual codex. These are a little pricey for what you get, I think. The rules for the main factions are each $50, and I think that's fair. You get 4 or 5 different factions, depending on evil or good, respectively, and it comes with all the stat blocks for those. So let's take a look at those. There's plenty of art in here. So here you get a very nice map of the old world, Ravenous Hordes book. So then you wind up with some art, such as here for goblins. And then you have the army lists, where it goes through and it does this for every army. So here we have, an orc character, another character, more orc characters, infantry, with their stat blocks, any options they can take if they have special rules, it's listed here. And then as we go more towards the back, special rules for giants. There's actually at least 2 pages. Did they go 3? Nope. 2 pages of rules for giants. They have a lot of special interactions. And then you have lists of magic items that you can take. You have any special rules for your army, and then spells. And then you get a very nice full page spread for each army after all their rules of the models themselves lined up for battle. And then you get some close-ups of various models. Not quite as many pictures as you would get in a codex, but enough, I think, especially for an army book where you have multiple different armies in it. I think it's done quite well, personally. Some excellent art for the Tomb Kings here. And then back map again. And then just a closer look at some of these models. And here, we have this nice big spread for this army where you have this Tomb King army versus some High Elves here as well. Likewise for Forces of Good, we have, Dwarves, Empire, and you have, close-ups of the Dwarf models. And then we go right into the Empire of Man, the Kingdoms of Brettonia, which is what I picked this up for. It goes into, you have a little lore blurb on each side for each unit, as well as the stat blocks. That's true for all the armies. And then towards the end, what else? You have some nice full pages. This is a new model. The mount is the same as the Lord that comes in the starter box, but it does not come with the pieces for the banner. I do find that a little disappointing. But then here you get the full page spread of everyone arrayed up for battle. You can see that the Grail Knights here in the back all have different livery, but in this case, they've chosen to paint up most of the knights in the same color scheme. I think I will go for individual livery for each. But here we have the High Elves versus Tomb Kings. But several of the old models, you have the White Lions of Trace, which are lion chariots, which I think are great. They also have a axe unit. Yes, here they are. There's a closer up image of those on the next set of pages. Yes, here we go. I've always liked those. I just thought lion-pulled chariots were cool, but there's the white lions standing by themselves, some helms, and then one of the new Brettonian models in a nice full-page spread. I also picked up these 2 arcane journals, as I like both these armies, and it just has more art and lore for each of the faction therefore. So in this case, we have more lore for Brettonia. In the Tomb Kings, we have more lore for the Tomb Kings, some more art. And it does have some pages of examples of heraldry. Brettonian exiles, bold crusaders, giving some different army lists for you, some extra rules for some named characters. So like here we have the rules for the Green Knight, which is a beautiful sculpt still, even though I believe it's a metal miniature. We also have some rules for some other named characters, which are only available in this arcane journal. They are not available in the main rule book. Yes. There we go. So I do have some rules for heraldry, how to paint them up, differences between Knights Errant, Knights of the Realm, Questing Knights, Grail Knights, Dukes, various other forms of heraldry, how to do their uniforms, that sort of thing. I do think these 2 books are a little expensive for what you get, that $27 each. I would have liked to have had more maybe paint schemes available, or how to paint certain things, the painting guides even. But you get similar things here in Tomb King, so you get Armies of the Dead, some close-up looks on the miniatures, on how you might want to paint those, a full-page spread of armies, just very nicely done. I mean, I'm not upset with what I got. I just wish there was more of it. Some various configurations here of like Tomb Kings or Tomb Princes, Necrotechs, just closer looks, very similar to what you would get in a Codex. I kind of wish this was all rolled into the rulebook, and the rulebook or the army books were even larger. Make things just a little nicer so you didn't have to buy the extra. It does have rules for Cetra the Imperishable, which they re-released his model as a mix of metal and plastic. So there is that. But, just cool stuff in those. So I did wind up picking up both army sets at the same time. I probably would have done it a little differently if I had realized they would be restocking on those starter sets. But it was a little iffy at the time when I ordered them if they would actually be restocking them, and when that might happen. So I did wind up picking up both of them, but with having picked up all this stuff, there's very little I have to buy to go forward. I'd probably be playing smaller games anyway. So for me, it worked out okay. There are a few things I'll probably pick up when they do come out, such as the Brettonian Knights on Foot, as those are brand new sculpts. They look pretty good. They'll probably be about the same price as Tomb Guard. They have also announced that they are going to be doing not quite start collectings, but similar type boxes to these of the main factions. So like, orcs, high elves, and the first up is orcs. They're calling them battalions, and it does seem like they will be the equivalent of starter sets for those miniatures coming up in the future. So we're starting off with an orc battalion and the Orc Arcane Journal. They do have 2 new miniatures, Orc and Orc Warboss and a Orc Shaman. And most of them are returning in plastic. Some will be returning in resin. Everything in these 2 starter sets is in plastic. But there are some new resin options, which I find a little disappointing. I'd much rather work with plastic personally. That's all I have for today. I'll see you guys next time.